Good morning, welcome. You are watching Ask a Doctor Anything, presented to you here from Tustin Longevity Center in Orange County, California. My name is Talon, I'm the practice manager here, and I'm joined by Dr. Rita Ellithorpe.
Hi.
Hey. So glad you guys could join us today. This is meant to be an interactive show where we want to hear questions from you, the audience. You can post those over in the chat section of the video. Should be off to your screen right here. You do need to be logged into YouTube to do that. If you're having any trouble, you can't log into YouTube, that's fine. You can email your questions in, and I have a list of questions that have been emailed to us over the last week or so. So I'll be asking the doctor those today. But we are monitoring those chat questions, so please do post there. Of course, this is for education purposes only. This is not supposed to be medical advice. We don't want you to treat this as personal medical advice. We do want you to follow up with your physician and get detailed answers for your specific circumstances there. We're answering these questions to learn together how Dr. Ellithorpe, an integrative physician, would approach your question, your challenge, and work with a patient on that. So, without further ado, shall we jump right in, Doctor?
Yes, I hope everyone has been enjoying the Monday 5:30 in the evening talk with the doctors.
Yes. Dr. Ellithorpe has started doing Monday evenings on her own. She sits here at the desk and watches the questions come in on chat. So join us there. We're trying that out. We're monitoring, seeing how many people are participating there, how that's going. That is a longer format too. We're here, Dr. Ellithorpe has to see patients right after this episode on Monday. It is a little bit more in-depth and a little bit more time that you get to spend with her. So Mondays, right here on YouTube, on this channel, make sure that you subscribe, and that way when new videos come out or when we're live, you'll be notified and you won't miss anything there.
We're always trying to do things that will prevent illness or restore your health. And so the whole point of these interactions are to inspire the patient about the many aspects of lifestyle changes that they can employ themselves to not have to go see a doctor. Yes. So I'm actually trying to dig myself in a hole here by keeping everyone well.
Work yourself out of a job.
Work myself out of a job. And what a joyous fact that would be if that ever happened. Right. Because we see some really, really wonderful things. We really had almost no impact from COVID.
Right.
And so we have proven this decade after decade after decade that the doctor that puts the time with the patient, the conversation, has the healthy patients, and we really are resilient against all these kind of challenges to our health.
We sure are.
Praise the Lord.
Yeah. It's amazing what being on the right nutrition program, taking the correct supplements, avoiding the foods that you should avoid for your specific, body, and of course being active and drinking enough water and getting the occasional IV, especially chelation.
Yeah.
What doing those things to our patients helps them just be so resilient.
Right.
And we see very little, if ever, hardly ever do we hear of new cancer cases with our patients.
Right, or new heart
strokes.
attacks,
Yeah.
Strokes.
We have such a...
diabetes. Instead, we see medicines going down, less prescribed.
Right.
We see the weight going down. We see the energy going up. I just called, I think it was yesterday afternoon, one of my new patients who's 86 years old, and he's got quite a deal of problems. And so in 2 weeks, he's already seeing energy coming back and so forth. So we keep an eye on him, and it just tickled me pink. I was praying for him, and God has really answered my prayers regarding some of his improvement. Of course, working with his specialists because he's quite challenged with illnesses, and we want to integrate that work. And I called to make sure that he is indeed working with his specialists on what we're doing.
Great. All right, well, how about I see some questions are starting to pop in.
Okay.
Why don't we answer a few here, and then I'll get to the ones that were emailed in. Jennifer mentions, peer-reviewed study just came out showing high levels of organic fluorine in the PFAs in long-lasting makeup. Will EDTA chelation help remove PUFAs or PFAs? I think that PUFAs are different.
Polyunsaturated fatty acids.
She's talking about organic fluorine, PFAs.
Organofluorides. On the periodic element chart, you'll see the halides are kind of on the right-hand side, and the highest one I think is fluorine, then you have chlorine, then you have, no, maybe it's bromine, fluorine, chlorine, and then iodine. So if you take iodine all the time, and we usually have our patients on iodine, we can do an iodine 24-hour collection and see if you are deficient in it. There's about 97% of all Americans are deficient. The diet, you know, bread used to be iodinated bread. When I was a little girl, 60 years ago, all bread and things like this was iodinated. Now even salts today are not necessarily iodinated. You have to look for that. Iodine is the lightest weight of all the halogens, and it is bumped out of place. So if you buy Mountain Dew and other, I think Gatorade, it's full of bromine. So they've brominated the breads. And iodine is what we need for our mental acuity, our thyroid function, our metabolism. So if they're putting fluorine in the makeup, polyunsaturated fatty acids, this is just something you should not be using. And consider getting on some iodine. We use iodoral and ithroid. Those are the two. They have 12.5 milligrams. And I would encourage almost everyone to take it. And the salt of iodine is not the IV iodinated organic factor that they use in dyes, okay? So if you had an IV reaction to that organified IV dye, that's not the same molecule. The pure little tiny salt, no one's going to react to. You have to have it. It's essential.
Okay.
So hopefully that answers her question.
Right, and that brings up, well, I want to ask about the chelation question, but you bring up an interesting thing to be aware of when it comes to health, and especially when you're talking about elements on the periodic table. There is an affinity, and both in a good way there's affinity sometimes, and then there's bad way and affinity, meaning these different molecules compete. So when we're talking about chelation has a higher affinity to certain heavy metals over others, and then over time as those move out of the way, like a magnet going over iron, and maybe there's some other elements in there, it's going to grab the iron first because it has a high affinity. When we eat poorly, things like sodas or bad food, that affinity works against us because we're flooding our body out for the good nutrients that are trying to get in there, but things like iodine, very lightweight, it's hard to grab onto.
Right, and
that's why it's so important to supplement with
That's another principle of analytical chemistry, biochemistry, which is mass action. So you may actually have with chelation a molecule that has better affinity, but if you have a vast majority of other things of lower affinity, that will take precedence until their numbers are reduced. So yeah, EDTA chelation I brought up I think last week. The spike protein on the COVID, now they understand that this is a cation, which means it's positively charged, and EDTA chelation is attracted to these toxic metals that are positively charged, as well as the cation that would be in the spike protein. So theoretically, it should be something that would help reduce the spike protein. Interesting.
Okay. Jennifer asked, will EDTA chelation help remove PFAs?
Not polyunsaturated fatty acids. You take digestive enzymes, systemic enzymes for that. You stop eating them. That's in all the packaged storage life on the shelves, all this long, prolonged storage life. They have to damage these polyunsaturated fatty acids and hydrogenate them so they don't readily react with oxygen, which makes them rancid. And so polyunsaturated fatty acids have to be eliminated from your diet by stop buying cheap packaged food, eat real food, prepare your food, and use digestive enzymes, use systemic enzymes, and use parent essential oil. We have clinicians' preference oil. That's linoleic and alpha-linoleic acid. These are the types of fatty acids that are critical to the cell membrane function, and the only human essential fatty acids that exist. It is not EPA and DHA. Those are not human essential fatty acids.
Right. I'm just going to jump to a question that's related. Perry says, iodide
and iodine are the same thing. Right. Yeah. So it's one is reduced and the other's ionized. So it's the salt of iodine. Right. Okay.
Like if we look at the iodarol on here, it has total iodine, iodide 12.5, and then it breaks it down into iodine and iodide.
Yeah,
as potassium salt.
That's the back and forth conversion. Nothing is stable. So you're positive, you're negative. You have a good day, you have a bad day. Everything operates in a reduced or a oxidized state. So we have potassium iodide so that it will stay reduced.
Okay. Ernie mentions that 1 month ago he had a total knee replacement. What do you recommend for helping with inflammation? I know what you're going to say. You're going to say water and systemic proteolytic enzymes.
Systemic enzymes, yeah. And it'll help with also EDTA chelation. That'll improve the microcirculation immediately to the knee. Remember, the knee does not have a blood supply. The synovium has a tiny little synovial capillary artery there, and the microcirculation will be enhanced with EDTA chelation. Right. Water will help the volume of that. It'll help remove the debris. Systemic enzymes will chew up all the inflamed or damaged, surgically damaged tissues. Mm-hmm. And then eat your proteins, your healthy fats, real food, because that's what we're made of, is protein and fat. So you need a lot of that to repair with. So that should be the direction I would.
And fasting after surgery.
Yeah, fasting stimulates human growth hormone and repair. Intermittent fasting, if you go beyond 16 hours. So if you're doing 18 to 20 hours of fasting, which,
Ernie, yes, he says he's been on keto and intermittent fasting, 20 hours fasting per day for just over 3 years, and my health keeps improving, and he's on 0 medication.
Yeah, very, very good. So those of us who do that are going to probably do very, very well. Every morning I try and do my treadmill, I do my sit-ups, I do my squats, and I drink probably 4 of these glasses in the morning with my morning vitamins. I do my Bible reading, and then I'm ready to come to work.
Okay, I have a question here from EH. Is it okay for someone with high cholesterol to eat eggs, and how many? Thanks.
Absolutely, yes, you can have eggs. Now, I would say 2 things. Cholesterol is driven up by a high carb, starch, fruit, sugar diet. So the thing you have to lower is your fruits and starchy foods, carbohydrates, sugars, fruit sugars, because your body can only metabolize a certain amount in your diet when you're eating. If that exceeds what you're actually using in a day, then the body will convert that sugar into storage energy as triglycerides. Those triglycerides will swell up your cells. It'll create insulin resistance. And remember, sugar has fructose, 50% of it. Fructose is known in the liver. If you watch the video called Sugar, the Bitter Truth, Dr. Lustig goes through a nice long series of how alcohol and fruit sugars are really just pure toxins, because fruit sugar is only metabolized in the liver, and anything only metabolized in the liver is a toxin. So if you drink alcohol, it's a toxin. If you eat fruit sugar, it's a toxin. And so we have so much high fructose corn syrup hidden in our salad dressings, our ketchup, our restaurant sauces, restaurant foods, our sodas, our latte, frappies that people are drinking. So it's creating a tremendous stress on your metabolism. That then drives up cell membrane damage. Cell membrane damage calls for the liver to produce cholesterol molecules to help repair the body. So it's all a sugar, fruit sugar, excess carbohydrate problem. Eggs have nothing to do with it.
Okay, so eating eggs, eating cholesterol is not, you don't believe is going to hurt your cholesterol. It's the eating the sugars, the carbs that is causing those lab levels of quote unquote bad cholesterol.
Right, and it isn't just what I believe, it's the science, it's the truth, and we have all been deceived by the McGowan Commission on the cholesterol hypothesis and the faulty data that was submitted, and the financial interests of the sugar industries into finding that fat and cholesterol was the real problem. And so I think, the more you realize there's a problem with government getting involved in science. And ever since 1970s, where McGowan had that commission, my dad was in food research. He knew Dr. Engel. Dr. Engel is a biochemist, and there were tons of physicians and researchers that were readily available to prove cholesterol was not the problem. There was a doctor, I think his name was Yudkin, who wrote the book Pure, White, and Deadly. That was the book about sugar, and he was absolutely suppressed in the media, suppressed in the news. He was right all along. And so you have to have your doctor, you have to be able to talk with your doctor. You have to have time to see how well informed your doctor is. I have gone through all the training where they said it was cholesterol. I saw my dad. I second guessed him when I went through medical school, and then I did my research, and then I had my clinical experience, and I found out he and Dr. Engel and all these people were right. Dr. Yudkin was right. And unfortunately, too many people were injured with this. I have always been against carbs. Long before this fasting, intermittent fasting, low carb diet, I was the doctor here decades ago saying, cut the carbs, cut the carbs, cut the carbs. And it's one of the reasons why I like Juice Plus so much, because that you could get the micronutrients in fruits, vegetables, and berries without all the fruit sugars and starches.
Right.
Yeah.
And a related question that was asked last week from Jennifer was, a lot of people are on statins to reduce cholesterol, but isn't cholesterol beneficial for the brain?
Well, cholesterol is absolutely essential for cell membrane function. And so your body makes cholesterol. Yes, it's essential. So rather than giving a Band-Aid called a statin to lower cholesterol, teach your patient, inspire your patient, give the time with your patient, give them references to look at. One of the wonderful ones is Ivor Cumin, I-V-O-R Cumin, C-U-M-M-I-N. He's an engineer, he's a bioengineer, and he runs a YouTube series, Ivor Cumin, and the title of his YouTube is The Cholesterol Conundrum. I mean, there are literally countless YouTubes by PhDs, engineers, medical doctors, medical researchers about how important cholesterol is, and that cholesterol is never really the problem. It's your inflammation, the HSCRP, your sedimentation rate, your homocysteine, and things like that.
Right. I can see how it was quickly blamed as the bad guy when somebody has a blockage in one of their arteries or hearts, and they dig into that and say, oh, there's all this plaque buildup, that's cholesterol that's doing it. Cholesterol is the bad guy, when cholesterol is essential for health and for our cell membranes.
And in the repair.
It's trying to repair a problem.
But if you're constantly injuring it with a high sugar, sticky, hemoglobin
Heavy
A1C,
metals.
Inflammatory, the oxidative stress of heavy metals, lack of water,
Right.
then that poor body is going to try to repair a spot without doing any changes there. Now, let me just give a caveat. If you have injured yourself so much and you have had a heart attack and you have high cholesterol, there may be a space for the appropriate use of a statin at that situation.
Right.
So I'm not saying you would never choose to use a statin. I'm just saying I am a doctor for prevention. I am a doctor for trying to inspire and keep my patient population well, so they'll never be in a situation to ponder whether they need a statin.
Of course.
And I keep on telling them, look, if you're not going to follow my advice, do go to your other doctor, your cardiologist, get all the drugs that will maybe have some benefit for you if you won't change your style of living.
Okay. And certainly, if someone is on a statin, they need to work with their doctor to if they want to get off of that or discuss getting off of that. That's not something that they should do on their own. They should work with their physician.
Right, and we'll help them work with their physician and inspire them. We always say, let your doctor see these labs, and I give my labs to them, and I ask them to ask the doctor to release them from the use of it.
Yep. Okay, we have a question or comment from Deborah. She says, children wearing a mask at school and sports activities. In your opinion, your concerns?
I have here, I have a little bit of information that I would be ready to give you. Let me start with the first one here. This is just from yesterday, June 15th. Dr. Paul Alexander, PhD, Dr. Dara Parvez, MD, MBA, and Dr. Howard Tannenbaum, PhD and Doctor of Dental Health. They're on Trial Site News. If you go to Trial Site, TRIALSITE on YouTube, you'll see this. And this was in today's Trial Site News information. So they have been following it, like MedCram I have told you about. Trial Site News is another site. These gentlemen, these physicians and dentists and researchers have done an extensive look on all these questions about masking, the asymptomatic transmission, the lockdown, the social distancing. Plus, they've looked at all the recommendations that came out since January of 2020. And what they've done is they've annotated this and given many, we're talking 100 references of peer-reviewed material. Essentially, it's no, the children should not be masked. No, there shouldn't be social distancing. No, you should not worry about asymptomatic transfer. The title is Asymptomatic COVID Spread Used to Shut Down the Economy and Close Schools was false. In fact, it was a lie. So that's the title of this. It's a beautiful, exhaustive, well-documented, written by PhD, MD, doctors of dental, PhD references. So I would tell you, Debbie, to go to Trial Site News, and we'll post this in the bottom there as well. Then the next thing is this. Look at how thick this is. This is about 145 pages. This is also on Trial Site News last week by Steve Kirsch, Kirsch, May 25th, 21. And at Trial Site News, you can download this exhaustive tome that goes over trying to answer this question. And I showed this to you before. You can see the high spike here of the deaths compared to the past 30 years. Vaccinations and no deaths. So he's digging in deep as to why there is a spike of now well over 5,000 deaths with this. So you'll find that very interesting. And then there's a article on Pfizer skipped critical testing and cut corners on quality standards, documents reveal. This is written in Big Pharma News by the Children's Health Defense by Megan Redshaw. And this is just a nice article that reviews that Pfizer didn't thoroughly examine the biodistribution, and that's how we see the spike protein in the ovaries and the brain and crossing the blood-brain barrier, and the pharmacokinetics issues. Pfizer was given more discretion even with a radically new life science based technology. So what they're talking about here is when they gave them emergency use authorization, they actually even lightened up the requirements, and this was felt to be problematic and very, very risky. In addition, no genotoxic data were provided to their review organization. So this is called Pfizer Skip Critical Testing and Cut Corners on Quality Standards, Documents Reveal. I have other articles here. I'm just going to read their titles. The CDC is to convene emergency meeting on 226 reports of heart inflammation after COVID vaccine in people under the age of 30. This is also on Big Pharma News at Children's Health Defense. And this is talking about the myocarditis, pericarditis. This was published June 11th. At Big Pharma News, Children's Health Defense, The Defender. And then another article from June 8th, 27 experts launch citizen petition demanding FDA slow down and get the science right before approving COVID vaccines. This is 27 prominent healthcare experts, and you can see their names here, and the argument for their caution before authorizing any of these to be made permanent. So that article is also very good. I was really saddened by this article. This also is in Big Pharma News, Children's Health Defense from June 14th. And this is written by Jeremy Hammond. This is about a physician in Oregon who has had his medical license taken away, a pediatrician, Dr. Paul Thomas. And his crime that they claim is that he was slowing the vaccination schedule for children. And so if you can see here, you could see the unvaccinated children compared to the vaccinated children in many, many parameters. You could see a nice reduction in their illness, their sickness, their need for medicines, missed days of school. And he was just tracking this in his private practice. And so doing the vaccinated compared to the unvaccinated trial, he was slowing down the rate of scheduling for these, and for that reason they took his license away. I think that's criminal. And then finally, the Cleveland Clinic on June 9th, again, this is in the Defender Children's Health Defense, written by Megan Redshaw again. The title is Cleveland Clinic Already Had COVID, Vaccine Provides No Added Benefit. So those people who want to get the SARS-CoV-2 quantitative antibody titers could do that, and it would show that the vaccination by the Cleveland Clinic, their big study there of thousands in their health population were already well endowed with long-term predicted immunity from the SARS-2 by having all those antibodies.
Okay. Well, Deborah, I hope that answered your question there. We have time maybe for one more here. EH asks, what do you recommend for someone who has thyroid issues that swing between hypo and hyperthyroidism? And what do you recommend for alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency? All the problems listed above in the same person, including inflammation and skin issues. So that's the picture of this patient.
Well, skin issues tell me that there's probably gut inflammation, because a lot of the atopic dermatitis problems are from chronic inflammatory biofilm. The biome in the gut is abnormal, and there's leakiness so that the food can pass right through, creating this chronic inflammation. With an alpha-1 antibody trypsin antibody deficiency, they probably always will need systemic as well as digestive enzymes. And I would suggest to do a carnivore diet. A carnivore diet takes the entire inflammatory reactivity of all the plant kingdom out, and then you're just getting, of course, from grass-fed sources. And if you go on a carnivore diet for 3 months, we usually see all these skin issues clear up, but you have to take digestive enzymes and use systemic enzymes. That's how I would approach that. Any
thoughts on the thyroid swings?
That's probably between his inflammatory peaks and wanes. And so as he or she gets cleared with a carnivore diet and uses enzymes, then there's time to do testing and find out what foods will help, and that'll stabilize his thyroid.
Okay. And I'm assuming you're familiar with Dr. Judy Mikovits?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so Perry says that doctor will be in town soon to speak. If you're interested, I can call your office with details.
Yes, why don't you publish it in the chat room there, and let us know. I think she lives nearby us anyway. She lives in Carlsbad. Yes, I know of her.
Okay, well, we are just about out of time, and I know Doctor has to get ready for her patients, because you actually see patients here in the office, and we have many questions that were emailed in that we didn't unfortunately have time to get to. I will pass these questions to Dr. Ellithorpe because I'm only keeping track here with her on the Wednesday morning episodes on the questions that are coming in via email. So if you're emailing questions in, we're answering them here on, today's Wednesday. So what I'm going to do, Doctor, is I'm going to leave these questions with you for Monday.
Okay.
So if you didn't get your emailed in question answered today, perhaps Doctor can answer it on the Monday episode. And if they're still answered on Monday, we'll pass those on to the following one. So we are queuing up your questions. I want you to know what we will get to them as soon as possible. Trying to balance answering questions in the chat as well as the email.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Thank you so much for joining us. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. Like the video, that really helps us out a lot. We don't charge for this. There's no fee, and you can invite anybody to this. So if you're finding value, share this channel with your friends or your family. Encourage them to come on here and ask us questions. Anything challenging or anything confusing, that's what we're here for. We want to educate you all on what it means to be healthy and what medicine looks like with a holistic doctor that looks at you inside and out and tries to prevent disease.
Integrative. We work with standard medical care, your physicians and your consultants, and so we're trying to just amplify your success.
Right. You're really just a good old general practitioner, family doctor that has a really good knowledge about health, nutrition, and preventing disease.
Mm-hmm. That's it.
Okay. Thanks for joining us, everybody. We look forward to seeing you here next week at 9:45 a.m. Pacific, and next week, Monday now, 5:30 p.m. Dr. Ellithorpe is doing a longer version. You can join her then and ask your questions live. Thank you. We look forward to seeing you next week, folks.
God bless.
Be well.
Like our soundtrack.